Sausmarez Manor is our postcard destination today as we come from the parish of St Martin on the island of Guernsey. Now behind us there is a sculpture going berserk. Peter, what's happening behind me? What is this?
This is a sculpture park of about 200 different sculptures by about 90 or so different artists.
Really? That many?
Yeah. And it's in quite a small area, but very compact, amongst sort of groves of bamboos and camellias. There are 320 camellia bushes in there, banana trees, tree ferns, lots of subtropical plants like that. And so I've got a combination of the wildness of the garden with this little mixture of delicious little sculptures just plotted in here and there, just to get us to lift the place.
Well, my favourite here is what I would call Robin Goodfellow, Puck.
Yeah.
As Shakespeare would call him.
Yeah.
But it's very much this feeling, as you say, it doesn't seem very controlled at times. It seems to be a very natural kind of garden, woodland.
Well, I'm glad you spotted that, because that's what I rather aimed at. An uncontrived, lightly controlled wilderness is basically what I try and go for, I think.
I think you're right. Now, we can hear a plane coming, which somewhat spoils the tranquility, because you're right near Guernsey Airport, aren't you?
Yeah. No distance from the easy forms of transport.
But as that one goes across, which I think is the island hopper, one of those yellow birds that goes up. Yeah. Of course, when your family first settled here, there was no such thing as an airport, was there?
Not remotely, no. In fact, the reason we placed the house here was because it was set on high ground, slightly back from the cliff top. So when the marauders did come, they'd be absolutely knackered by the time they got up here, and we could bonk them on the head without too much trouble. But unfortunately, my forebears hadn't got the foresight to realise we'd be over the flight path.
How far back are we talking when there was first a manor here? Or a building?
Building. Well, certainly one of my ancestors came and married a damsel here in about 1220. So there must have been something before he arrived, and changed it to whatever it was, the Sausmarez Manor then. So we've been here pretty well on and off since then, bar about 100 years, which sipped out of the family by marriage.
So a real Guernsey family?
Well, we like to think so, yes.
And tell us about some of your ancestors who I think have been almost everywhere on the globe, give or take a few places.
Well, you've done a lot of research, haven't you? Yeah. We've had one chap who went right round the world with a chap called Commodore Anson, and he had the great advantage and privilege to come back with having captured the largest treasure ship ever, and there's so much gold and silver on board that it took 32 wagons, would you believe, to carry it back from Dover Castle to the Tower of London. He only got a seaman's share because he was a supernumerary officer, but that seaman's share was £12,000 in 1745, which was a staggering amount of money if you think about it. I mean, it was enough to buy, well, 24 of the manors.
Really?
Because the manor only cost £500 to build 20 years before that.
And the New Yorker?
And then the New Yorker, well, he was a sort of part of the family. He was a descendant of a chap called Sir John Andros, who had married into the family, and the property went into her hands and descended through him. And he finished up as the governor of North Carolina, Virginia, Massachusetts, New England, New Jersey, New Plymouth, New York, and he was actually the first governor of New York. He was the one who changed it from New Amsterdam to New York.
It was him?
Yeah.
Looking at the manor house itself, tell us a little bit about that. What some of your favourite rooms? Are there any wicked stories that have gone on in there?
Well, let me think. Well, some of them are haunted, so I suppose that sort of adds...
Really?
Is
that truly, or just sort of a...
No, not a bit, no. There's one, one of my ancestors had 28 children, so I suppose there's a bit of fun that went on there. And that's why the house had to be doubled in size. And we got a portrait of the nanny who looked after 28, and she still haunts the children's bedrooms, and she only appears to children. She's appeared to my two boys, and also to my cousins, because I wasn't actually brought up here, my cousins were brought up here, and they used to see her quite often.
And why would she come back?
Well, she just loves children.
Oh.
Yeah, and she's also has appeared occasionally to girlfriends in the past, giving them the hint that they're a good move or a bad move.
Isn't that incredible? So children also who wouldn't know about such things have actually come and said to you, we've seen this woman.
Yeah, but they don't think she's a ghost or anything, because she just tucks them into bed and reads them a story. And they think it's perfectly natural, and they just tell you, you you ask them about what happened last night, because it usually happens at a particular sort of crisis moment. And they say, oh, well, she just came, the old woman in grey put us to bed, you know.
Really?
You think, God, who the hell are they talking about, you know? And so eventually I discovered this was who it was, this ghost.
I've never been to anywhere tropical or jungle-like, but this is possibly the nearest I'll get. There's all these different trees, big leaves, small leaves, spiky plants, and sort of some old faithful things like an apple tree. This whole mixture, this combination, this cocktail of different shrubs and plants is very exciting because you don't know what you're going to come across next. We have a young lady here who is lying, perhaps sunbathing, perhaps not. And we've got here, which is what drew me to this corner, the wonderful lines and the shapes. Now, regular postcard viewers will know my favourite sculpture in London is down by Chelsea with the boy with the dolphin, where they're sort of held up by this tiny bit, you know. I can't even do it on one leg. They're not doing it on one leg, they're doing it on one dolphin's fin at the bottom. This defies gravity. Look at it. Absolutely beautiful. It's like a circle, a vortex of bodies and mammals. Dolphins are mammals, not fish. A vortex of mammals. Very exciting. See what else I can discover. I think I see a hippo over here. And are there things that go back right the way to the beginning of the house in the 13th century?
There's one thing, and that's the astonishing thing. In 1987 we had that terrible frost, do you remember, and the gale, and in the frost it killed this hedge, so we had to dig it up, and out of the ground came this stirrup. And it was such a very odd shape, so I sent it to the local museum here, who sent it to the British Museum, and they said we can date this almost precisely to 1220.
No. So that goes right the way back to the family. Any skeletons in the cupboard? Or is your whole family in the cupboard?
I think there's quite a big cupboard waiting for me, actually.
Oh, I don't believe it. Really? Never let it be said. What about black sheep?
Black sheep? Oh, yes, we did have one, actually. He rushed off and went into trade and started the Army and Navy stores.
No.
Yeah. He's also actually quite a good egg, actually, because he dived over the side into shark-infested waters and rescued a sailor who was drowning. And he was the first man to get the Albert Cross, first officer to get the Albert Cross.
So a hero.
Hero, really, yes.
Absolutely. And as we look around this garden, and I must admit we've got lots of children enjoying themselves in the autumn sunshine. I can see the lovely little waterfall over there and the dolphin. Always very lucky to have a dolphin, you know, in the grounds.
Is it? Oh, right.
And what gave you the idea to make something of these acres here? Are you a lover of sculpture?
Well, I am, yes. But I must take no credit for the idea, because Mick Watson, my partner, came up one day and he said what I needed was some sculpture in the garden. And I was immensely hurt, because it'd taken me 18 years to create this wonderful wilderness. And he was going to come and spoil it by doing this, you see. And eventually he persuaded me I ought to. And of course he's absolutely right. I mean, you just have to look. It just lifts the whole thing.
It's lovely to look around there, and you've got your coniferous little islands. Is this a natural brook and stream that is now running through the grounds?
Well, the stream
or did
is
you
natural.
create it?
No, this was here, but it's not natural. It's typical Victorian efficiency. It is completely lined in granite. It's quite amazing, yeah.
And where does it come from? Because
there's a spring, although we're very high ground.
spring.
Yes, this spring further up.
And what's your favourite sculpture?
I think that wonderful horse's head. It does change, although there's the most delicious naked girl over there. And there's one of Pope Joan, which is the most
Joan,
dramatic
the female
one.
Pope, yes.
Yeah, and that's really dramatic by Philip Jackson.
And what's some of the prized things in the manor house itself? Are there particular things which you really enjoy because they're part of your heritage?
There's wonderful tapestries, absolutely delightful tapestries, and these are very rare because they're actually made by, they're always thought by the Victorian Albert Museum to be made by Huguenot refugees who fled from the terror in about 1640, something like this, set up their works in just a place like Mortlake and Putney around there, just outside London, using local skills and local materials, carrying on their own traditional skills, producing their same traditional work, but producing English-made Flemish tapestries. And this is one of the few remaining ones that are known. So that's a thing of great pleasure, particularly as we've just, about 2 years ago, finished an 11-year restoration programme. And that was all done by public subscription. People came in, put £1 or 2 shillings or 50p or whatever it is. It took us 11 years to raise the money. And we had this amazingly wonderful conservator, I must get the wording right, who has been working away at it. And of course it was a terrific race to be able to raise the money before she'd actually finished that particular tapestry. But we managed it just in the end.